Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Y'all know what the deal is. So it's 8 of you in here now. Go ahead and hit that share button. Tell somebody else about this because the point of it is to benefit. Now, I'm not going to say that yesterday was it was neither costly nor lucrative, but I didn't mind putting a message out yesterday. It had a lot that I outlined on a document, on notes, but I didn't say because of time. And one thing I meant to include in yesterday's lesson, but I didn't say, was that sometimes other people have done things to get ahead we wouldn't be willing to do for moral reasons. One of them is the material development at the expense of morality and a sense of balance. Some groups have done that. We've generally tried to avoid that. The other thing is to turn their backs on Black folks to get Wyatt approval. Now, the features knows it, and I know it. And many of you know it. The Vietnamese are one example of this in the States. In the 80s and 90s, they were like the Filipinos and the Thai. They weren't our enemies. They weren't each other's enemies. But now they're just like the Koreans and Chinese because a few of them have been willing to go on camera and do or say things that are anti-Black. Now, I don't think most Vietnamese actually are of an anti-Black orientation, but the few of them were willing to make themselves look as such. Hell, Jeannie Mai, before she met Jeezy, said that Black men were like dessert, but her meal was a Wyatt man. Now she's divorced a Wyatt man, married a blood, and submitted to him, and had his baby. Cute kid, too. So she learned from her mom, who wasn't Black or anti-Black, but had actually taken on a Western woman's mindset more than Western women, which is exactly what sisters are doing, taking on Wyatt women's mindsets and feminism further than Wyatt women ever did. But you can remember what you can remember what Jeannie Mai said before she ever met Jeezy. She was still married to the other guy. Honestly, I doubted that she and Jeezy would stay together. I'm glad I was wrong, but you can understand why. What's good, Indigo Flow? Line to MGTOW, shouts out to y'all. So this one is about the fact that sisters are listening to certain women. I'm going to go ahead and start with Shira 7, even though she's not in the thumbnail. I usually keep the names of witchcraft magicians out of my mouth because they can cast spells, and the unseen agents that carry out the attacks on their behalf like to do things to people that pray if they can get past the walls. Especially love to come after us as Muslims if they can get to us. It's usually not easy a process for them if they're coming across a Muslim that's praying. If you're of another faith, then you would have to explain how it is that taking it seriously correlates to whatever effects these things might have, or whatever they come across in their efforts to do something to you. And that's if you even know that somebody sent them after you. But I usually don't take that risk, because after Hajj last year, they seemed to be able to do a whole lot against me and nothing stopped them at first. And then they went after my son. When my son prayed for protection, something screamed in his house in severe pain, and it woke him up, of course, to hear someone scream. But when he went to check on his mom and sister, he was the only one home. And so, as mentioned in the Old Testament in the Quran, they perceive fire and burning when they go after a protected target. As a matter of fact, the Old Testament describes angels as carrying swords of fire and having defended the garden with such after the expulsion of Adam and Eve. Peace be to him. May Allah be pleased with her. Some people that practiced magic would say that they could leave their body and go after someone themselves. And there was one that said he saw these very tall, large, well-muscled men, and he said he thought they were just like tall bodyguards, but that their swords were burning. They didn't have guns, they had swords, and the swords were burning. And they didn't even approach the targets due to this. Well, the one talking about this said he didn't. And when the shuyukh or exorcist in our faith recite the Quran over victims of demons or witchcraft or possession, the ones possessing the victim begin to feel like they're burning. So they're usually burned out of the victim if they don't leave willingly. And what I sent to my son for him to pray for protection was not designed to just repel them. It was designed to kill them if they came to do anything. It didn't require possession. It was designed to kill them if they came close and they did not retreat. Get too close, die. That's the one I sent to him. And then later my son heard someone screaming in pain, kind of pain that will make you scream if you were being burned. So I didn't tell my son everything about this before, that I told him afterwards. But after that, it did something to me. And it worked. It wasn't permanent, but it worked. These things that they send can come against us as human beings, and they hate us anyway because we come from Adam. They hate Eve because Eve came from Adam. They hate us from coming from Adam and Eve. They hate white and black and anything in between, but they hate us more for resembling Adam and Eve more than others. And this is really the secret behind white supremacy being found in different parts of the world amongst people who had no contact with each other before electronic communication. If you wonder what the hell that is, that's it. That's all. I've explained before. If you think there's no devil, you'll never understand white supremacy. And you smack your head against the wall trying to figure it out. How could they all be against us? Well, it's not all of them, but you'll be trying to figure out how are so many against us? You've been trying to figure it out. You beating your head up against the wall, but you can't see that this is supernatural. So, or what we think is supernatural. But that's the explanation for the widespread nature of white supremacy and white supremacist ideas, despite human beings' knowledge that oppression is wrong and a human instinct to count human beings as equals by default. I mean, we know the rules should work the same for everybody, but somehow when it comes to folks that are darker, everybody has the same exception. Yeah, who did that? So in any case, I don't have to go into all of that. But I can tell you that these same unseen agents serve magicians, and magicians also serve them too. But these things, these demons demand that human beings who want to work with them, at least closely, do things to dehumanize themselves and give up all human dignity. These are their initiation rites. It might be something like rolling around in excrement, or they might have to commit horrible crimes against their own relatives. Have you guys ever heard of something called Dog Man? What's going on, Black Gamer Romana? So you yeah, I think you're probably done with work over there. If you're in Japan, you probably finished work already because it's late there. It's almost 3 in the afternoon where I am, so it's probably, guess it's late at night for you. But yeah. So the time that somebody wrote the story for me to read, sent it to me, some people commented and said, yeah, that's Dog Man, the animal that he was supposed to have seen. Well, I'm not an expert in cryptozoology and all that stuff, but what I do know is this. There's a tribe that believed that the people who became either these things or skinwalkers had to commit incest or sacrifice a family member, and a close one at that. As a matter of fact, in their legend includes a story of a guy that agreed to commit a crime like that against his own mom, and he failed to do it because, you know, he loved his mom and his instincts were against it. And so a few minutes later, he was killed by one of these things because he didn't go through with what he agreed. He wanted that power, but when it was time to actually do the deed to get it, he was like, "No, bro." And they saw him, caught him a few minutes later and said, "Yeah, bro, got him." So whatever truth there is that there isn't to that legend, the fact is the demons don't do anything for human beings except do things that are very nasty to our nature, regardless even of religious belief. They go for the moral instinct of human beings and say, oppose that. That way, no matter what your parents believed and no matter what you believed before, you will now, they got you, morally speaking. You got to be outrageous morally and very nasty. And in many cultures, that's why they don't trust magicians. So someone always asked how to do what they did, and they were told to do something horrible. And that's how those who do practice it are known to be untrustworthy in various cultures. A lot of times people ask how to get in it, how to get that power. They're told what to do, and they balk and say, oh, hell no, and they tell someone else. And sometimes even people that don't even try to get into magic through an already practicing magician get seduced by some of these things just so that they won't take their own faith seriously. And then this way they'll still ask something else instead of God for what they want, like start talking about manifestation. As an example, human beings can't manifest stuff with our mouths, with our tongues. We can inform the right people to get things done. We can ask the right parties to get things done. But just saying it in a room by yourself is not going to make these things come about. If you find that you're able to do that, it's not you. It's not your power. If you could be in a room by yourself and you say, this is not going to happen, or that is going to happen, that's it. And then you walk out and it's like you said, someone you did not see granted your request. Now, either the right one did it for the right reason or the wrong one did it for the wrong reason. That will be for you to figure out. So Shira 7 is practicing and preaching an exaggerated materialism because of two things. Now, one is her own instinct to hate poverty, which we have as human beings. We don't blame someone for hating it. It's nasty. But the other is misandry, hatred of men, and especially normal men who might become poor easily, especially now in this economy in which you now live, and even I live, along with men who are already poor. Oh, she really hates them. So this preaching of hers will make an enemy of most men because it'll turn most women into the enemies of most men, unless, of course, they're wealthy men. And even then, notice this, She tells women to not even be submissive to wealthy men and to give the draws when they call for them. And I'm going to keep bringing up the draws because that's one of the ways that they can submit. And they can say that I'm talking about some kind of crime if they want. I'm not. I'm talking about them submitting. I'm not talking about a crime. But I'm going to bring that up because that's what they use to manipulate. So she always tells women to lie about their age and to lie about having kids so they can get that wealthy, high value man that has every reason to turn away older women with other men's kids for him to raise. She keeps doing that. When does she tell a woman to actually satisfy and try to please a man and keep a man? She doesn't. She'll tell you to deceive, to lie. She'll use tarot cards. These things, she'll tell you how to cast a spell, but she will not tell you how to actually just be good to that man, be a wife. She does tell women to stop being so damn obese and getting these cheap, obviously fake BBLs. Sometimes the women will listen to her then because of the other stuff that goes with it. But she tells women to have all kinds of attitude all the time. So you're not obese, you're in shape, you didn't get a nasty looking BBL. She tells you to have a nasty attitude to go with it. So they're okay with that. What makes her different from Kevin Samuels is that Kevin Samuels said don't do these things and don't have a nasty attitude. Be nice to look at and don't have a bad attitude. And they're like, oh my God, oh hell no. Those two can't go together. If we look good, we got to be bad. I keep telling you, they're coming to you with these false dichotomies. I've stated this before. So she tells them to do this so they can demand more and to keep us on treadmills. She doesn't tell the women this so that men and women can be happy together. Money, girl, sprinkle, sprinkle. And as Anatar, a commentator on YouTube, said, she'll have women in their 20s saying sprinkle, sprinkle. In their 30s, they'll be saying single, single. In their 40s, they'll be saying kitty, kitty. And in their 50s, they'll be saying wrinkle, wrinkle. Assalamu alaikum, base Muslim. Yeah. Indigo Flow, when I mentioned Dog Man, I was mentioning them. Sometimes they call them that in the Gulf Coast area. The Cajuns call it Rougarou with an R, but Loup Garou was the French way to say it. And the Cajun French, it became Rougarou. I don't think it's a person that turns into something else. If somebody's doing witchcraft, maybe it's a person that makes an appearance or an illusion or something like that. But no. I don't think it's like a person on the full moon that swaps over. But that had, according to a legend, it had something to do with demons, and a legend, original Americans, that had nothing to do with Christianity. And that's why I mentioned them. Hold on a second. I forgot to do this. I forgot to turn on that banner because I do this and I'm not teaching an English lesson. So that means I'm not doing a private lesson. So yeah, I put the banner on for those who can. Now, if you cannot punch the Cash App for me, it's okay. But if you cannot do it for me, then do it for Brother Hayes and his co-writer. Their cash, DHAYES, D Hayes 2622. So if you can't come through for me, please come through for him. So getting back to this, she's going to have them. She's actually teaching them to run men off, but she doesn't realize that. And that's because we haven't, until recently, we haven't really started to mass abandon the Westernisha. I think we're doing it now, doing a better job, thank goodness. But why does she preach that men should amass large amounts of money? I mean, I get that women like it, but women actually have more control over how they look than we do over how much money we make. It's money. It gets up and it runs from you. It has to be rare or else it won't buy anything. She tells that because that's impossible for all men to do. That's impossible for half the men to do. Once all men have large amounts of money stored up somewhere, that money won't buy as much anymore. End of. That's the definition of money. That's why sand can't be money. Most human beings, men or women, won't have large amounts of it by virtue of the very definition of the word money. So once everyone has a lot of it, either it's less valuable or it's no longer money at all. You can print up Confederate currency right now because it's not worth anything. Print up a US dollar. When any woman preaches this materialism, they're destabilizing families and couple formation itself. Now, granted, they don't have to like poverty, but Allah has prioritized the libido of both men and women over the materialism of either one. And this bothers the hell out of Western women. Frankly, I don't think that it's wealthy men who should be the only ones marrying multiple wives. I think it's the ones who are in the middle for most traditional women, but it should be only the poor men for Western women. That's because Western women, as a rule, the ones that we, and a lot of them are already facing that, working and still living in their cars. Got to take bird baths in Walmart bathrooms and stuff. So only the poor men in the West should be the ones marrying 2 or more wives. Money's so hard to get that women who demand large sums of it from men are already unrealistic, no matter how much money the woman has. They're demanding that you make abundant what Allah has already made rare as hell. Like you control that. That's what they're demanding. Men demanding that women be fit and friendly while they're still young are actually asking for very little, and all of it is under the woman's control. So a woman can't decide when she's born, but she starts off young, and she can decide how she'll be before she gets old and even after it. The only question is how they decide they'll be. And usually they're going to be nasty with an attitude, and Shira's telling them to continue that and actually to step it up. She's not the only one I'm going to talk to you about today either. As a matter of fact, one thing I'm going to point out before I even go to the next one is that most of them won't be practice dummies for guys to get experienced. I mean, we already know the women who walk around with high body counts, most guys who walk around with low body counts or no body counts. Now, these women want you to be experienced. They're not willing to be your practice dummies. I'm not saying they should be practice dummies, but they want you to be experienced. They usually won't socially approve of a man, but they want men to be socially approved of by others. I mean, hell, if they knew of something that would make guys become taller while we're growing, they would deny it to us, but then they want men to be taller. They don't want a man that doesn't know what women want, but they lie about what they want to deceive boys before these boys become men. So what do all these things tell you? It's war. They want to disqualify most of you anyway. They want you to be taller. They wear heels. What the F, man? And then complain about what they don't get when they're old and nobody wants them. They only want you to do what makes you unhappy. And Shira 7 is teaching these women to be more demanding of men so they can be more frustrated by the same men later on in life. She's unhappy, and she wants them to be too. See, someone looked up her husband, James, and found out that his job is stated on LinkedIn, doesn't even pay a six-figure salary. But she's insisting that women settle for no less. So when she's sitting up in these rooms that look like, or she's taking a photograph in some background, it's supposed to be her house, but obviously it's not something James could afford. The question then is, what is she doing? What is she getting? Where does she get these backgrounds from? She openly preaches that women should take and not give, and lie to that specific end too. Now, what does that sound like to you? Then she uses tarot cards on camera to tell fortunes. Y'all see where we're going with this? There's some serious hatred going on. This one here, hold up. I want y'all to see this. And base Muslim, if I'm doing this too early in the day for you, man, I'm sorry about that, bro. So y'all take a look at this. What's going on, Detroit 313? We call these, you can also call these supplications to the rest of you. I'm going to tell you these things do work. There are verses already in the Quran, but they're read in such an order they're with harm against you. Some of them are read in such orders to kill them. They can die. They live and they die like human beings a lot longer, according to many witnesses. But yeah, they can pass away and they face judgment like us. Think about it. In order to become a demon, you got to have free will and choose evil. So there are those that don't choose it. What's going on, MLR? I really appreciate you, MLR. I mean that. From the bottom of my black heart, from the depths of my black mind, you really came through. So, yeah, they passed away like human beings. I think y'all should actually look up the verses on these things, both the ones that don't choose to do any harm and the ones that do. Same species, but different choices they make. I think y'all should look them up. Now, this is a story I would like to know more about. Oh, and by the way, Base Muslim, there's a brother here that's interested in getting the passport. He's from here. He was born here, but his ancestors came from the same place in which you recently got a passport. He's interested, if possible. So Shira 7 gets into these things. Now, at some point, Shira's got to know who it is that's doing these things on her behalf. Let me move on and tell y'all some more. There's another woman that gets into spirits too. She even said that spirits tell her about people at times. I believe her. I'll tell you why. She was raised by a pastor, if I remember correctly. She left the church because Jesus didn't give her what she wanted. Let me tell you something about that. These things talk. I mean, that's how they give people what they need to do for the initiation. They talk to people, as long as it won't help any good people in the process. They'll tell the truth or they'll lie either way, whichever hurts people who believe in the Lord. Now, if you're Muslim, they'll really lie on you every time. And this is because if they slander religious people in general, they'll give the impression that whoever believes in God seriously is so flawed that God actually failed. They don't want to give you the impression that God doesn't exist if they can go further than that. Because that gives you a neutral view of God. They don't want that. If they can go past that, they won't settle for it. What they want is to give the impression that people who believe in God seriously are so flawed because God actually failed, that he's there and he's just incompetent. And I seek refuge from ever thinking that way, but that's what they want. Now, if they can't get you to think that, it's one thing. But if they can, they'll go. That's the goal for which they'll go. So this woman that I'm talking about openly stated to me and to others that it's about taking from men and not giving to them ever. And she believes that women should never please men or submit in any way. All right. Shouts out to Indigo Flow. Thank you, sir, from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Let me know if you can see this reply. I mean that. Muchísimas gracias, señor. So she believes that if there's anything that a man wants in life, that she should withhold it for exorbitant prices. The drawers, extort him, clean him out. Raising his kids, clean him out, just anything. If he likes it, it needs to be very expensive and unaffordable. She literally believes that anything a man values should be surrounded by insurmountable walls. She told me this herself. I want to tell y'all some more about it. Keep your seatbelts buckled. She said to me that men's job is to fight each other to the death for the resources that women want us to have. The only reason she doesn't consider herself at war with men is because we're too unimportant for that. She said this when I went on her channel, and there was another man on there. I found out later this man routinely goes on her channel. There's another man that goes on the channel. He's not, I don't know about him being on panels. He used to. I don't know if he still does. And I'm going to tell y'all his name. Smurgo. I'm not hiding this. And that's because most of you will probably be able to see it. He didn't change his name when he went onto these channels. He didn't go there under another account. He took no issue with the things she said. It's so bad that some women of the golden sphere, about which I told y'all a while ago, who themselves are not submissive by any means, at least not publicly, themselves sat up and decided that she was too much for them. These other two don't particularly hate men. They don't necessarily want men to be too happy, but they don't. I mean, if they can get so-called golden men, that's the term a lot of them are using, meaning mixed and light-skinned men, to build for them and not get anything in return, they'll go for that. And don't mind saying it. I mean, there's a man in the golden sphere who means well, but he's fallen for that stuff. Real men don't ask what's in it for them. They just build. Yeah. What that means is that you do the building and they're going to go and pick a man that didn't build. And those men are going to be the ones that have those men are going to be the ones that collect the most in terms of them draws. And they're going to be the ones that father the kids. So you're going to have this golden community, but the kids ain't going to be from two golden parents. That's how bad it was. They sat up and saw her and said, this is too much. And that's pretty much because she was too open and honest about her hostility towards men. When I hear her talking, I already know I'm there to be used. And if I'm happy, she did something wrong. Like, no joke. An older man also goes on, or used to go on the panels. He probably still does. He's an older black man that calls black folks Crispies. Unmixed black folks, he calls them Crispies. He says that young men these days ain't fit. So he's cool with her dissing men because of the modern guys that don't chase pussy, as he calls it. So he's sitting up telling you that old nigga stuff like you need to be out here chasing some pussy. He doesn't even say chase. He says get it. Like they just walk around handing it out. But they got high body counts, but it ain't most of us that make up these body counts. You know what the deal is. A third of men either haven't gotten busy in the last year or they're virgins. And if you ain't married, I'm cool with you being a virgin. But that's not what the paradigm is. The paradigm is a third of these men are just shut out. If they got married, they'd still be shut out and still be expected to provide. Y'all know what it is. And this man wants to ignore all of that. And because he's so sick of young guys not being stupid enough to fall for it, he's going to sit up and side with her, dissing these young guys like, yeah, it's y'all fault she talk about y'all because y'all ain't fit, y'all ain't men. What's going on, Barry Little? She's so vile that they kicked out the golden sphere. She actually brought the black gender war into the golden sphere, to be honest. And she wasn't the only one, but she was one of them, and one of the main ones. And the golden sphere initially was trying to get away from the same hyenocracy from which we BMPTs are fleeing. Passport Bros, Passport Gang, SYSBM, others I'm sure I've forgotten, IBMOR, we're fleeing from this hyenocracy. The golden sphere was going to do the same thing. Y'all remember me talking about that? That lasted about 10, if even that long. If she feels like this and she's listening to spirits and she's into manifestation, and my advice to her is to go ask those spirits for guidance and help getting her kids back. They'd probably help her if God didn't protect the kids, but it seems to me that the law already is protecting the kids, and I hope he continues to do it. So you know how she thinks about men. So what do you and I expect her to request from these spirits? You can easily see where this is going, especially after Beautiful Lies, El Guapo, shout out to him, showed us that women confessing that many men were in these covens of witchcraft, putting hexes on men, that these men would attribute to God later on. And that's one of the problems with, generally speaking, black religion. I hate to say it, but that's one of the issues. We tend to think that every time we suffer, we tend to say the will of God, or it's good for me, it's going to make me a better person. After a while, you're just suffering. No, really. We tend to make that mistake. And they know this. Because the unseen ones with whom they're dealing were behind this notion that many black folks have, that every time we suffer, it's something good. There's such a thing as redemptive suffering, but it ain't every time. So they got demons doing stuff, and we're sitting up and saying it's God, will of God. There are women in these covens about whom we don't even know. You might know some ladies and don't even know that they're in these covens and out here putting hexes on men, and the hexes are working. And understand this, these women are hearing later about bad things happening to these men. If they didn't, they wouldn't continue in these covens. They're not just going to put a spell out and then just say, okay, I did it, and not try to get some follow-up. If they hate a man enough, they want to know something bad happened to him. So sometimes if a lady that really hated you or was mad at you or something like that just checks up on you, how you doing, that may be why. Trust me, I wouldn't just sit up and pray about something bad happening to someone, and then later, I don't care if it happens or not. I the Muslim, wouldn't do that. If I deserve that somebody believes for me to supplicate against them and deserves for God to punish them, then I believe that it's something, I believe it's important that something bad happens to them. And if I never hear about it, I'll quit asking. Yeah, Geek Underground, how you doing? Yep, question. She is Bossy Empress TV. That's who she is. Bossy Empress TV is her name. So Bossy Empress TV was the one that ran off the or she kind of scared some of the women in the golden sphere. Even they looked and said, this can't be real. And it was real. One of them straight up said, I wanted to see where this rabbit hole went, how deep it would go, and it never seemed to stop. She said it. She said it never seemed to quit. Another lady, and this other lady is not for any sort of black patriarchy that we're leaving behind, just without the dysfunction. That's not going to happen. But you and I are the only ones that know that. Laying the sound right now because I'm getting a notice that the connection's weak. I don't particularly care why it is. Maybe this machine is getting too hot again, but I already turned the fan on it. So in any case, I mean, we know it's hard enough to be patient with the wicked when you're trying to be righteous. So how much harder is it going to be for the wicked to be patient with whoever they hate? It's damn near impossible. They can't do it. And see, the fact that she got even that much, Detroit 313, the fact that she got even that amount is too much. She recently was on there asking Zaddy about it. And the Geek Underground knows about her. Edward Anderson does, if he can remember, he knows, but he's not making content right now because he's been pretty busy. So now let's go ahead and move on to Rebecca Lynn Pope. What Rebecca Lynn Pope is doing may not be consciously witchcraft. However, the deception is darn near magical. She complains about eligible men not being enough in number. The thing is, she mentions things that aren't really that common amongst men. She mentions felonies, interest in other men, and not wanting to marry at all. Are you serious? You and I are men. We know that's not that common. It exists, but it ain't common. We've all seen some dude that seems to be interested in other dudes. We know some felons. We know somebody that doesn't want to marry, but that's not the majority of who we know. The reason younger men might not be ready to marry is because they're taught that they're too young to marry. That's it. Younger men are taught, well, you know, you're just too young. No one says to them, it's really just financial. You just don't have the money for it. No one tells that to young men. Like, well, you know, you're too young. Dude could be 20. You didn't finish college yet. You're too young. No, he just doesn't have the money yet. You know what, base Muslim? Maybe I should do that too. I didn't know that you did this, base Muslim. In that case, then pray for me and you. Pray for us. Because it's going to be a few more months before the business I started starts to really take off and get up off the ground. So I'm reading these other comments. But you know what? No, base Muslim, that ain't evil. Not when we do it. Because people do this so much to us for nothing. So no. Oh. Reality is on to something. It does seem like it's a cult. Does seem like one. Maybe I think that would explain it. Yeah, that seems like that would explain it. Seems like that would, yeah, that tells us a lot. So moving on and getting back to her. Yeah, so a lot of young guys have been told that they're just too young to marry, when really it's just about the money that young guys don't have. But see, when we're young, we all learn that there are young guys that are getting experience with women already without having to be ready for marriage. And these women are getting experience with these same few dudes. And there's a Wyatt gentleman named Strong Successful Male on YouTube who reads Reddit stories that may be true or not, but they're addressed to him, and he gives the benefit of the doubt when he reads the stories. And this is what I've noticed. When he reads them, they seem real to him because he usually knows someone in similar situations, and we do too. I'm inclined to believe that these things happen. I don't know which stories are real and which ones are not, but I'm inclined to believe that these things happen because I experienced them. I mean, guys will write stories about how there's something they wanted from their wives, and their wives are like, I don't do that. And then they find out that before they met her in her college days, she did even worse, just not for them. That's pretty insulting, being treated like less than equal to other men. That's at the crux of the insult. And a lot of these guys, and you know, his audience ain't a black audience. So a lot of these guys are writing to him and stating, look, man, I got woken up by your channel and that sort of thing. So he's aware that men go through these things in real life, just like I'm aware. One theme of the stories is what I just said, that many men are now finding out about their wives or fiancés' escapades before them, usually college days, sometimes just no college. And that these women that they married or were about to marry had these abnormally high body counts. But these men don't have these high body counts. So when you're young, nowadays, guys that are young are starting to see this. They're starting to see this as it's happening because it's happening in front of them on social media. Guys our age, 30s and 40s and older, are finding out about these things retroactively through social media. The young cats are finding out about these things in real time through social media. So yeah, Rebecca Lynn Pope takes these things that are rare and disqualifies most men. But the real reason that there aren't more Carrie Popes is that few men can earn what Carrie Pope does. And also because older men that are single now know that the good side of them isn't safe with these over experienced and hyper experienced women who can't appreciate men less experienced than themselves. These women know they got these high body counts. Sometimes they may not know the body count, but they know they got them and they're high. How you think a woman looks at you when she's got a high body count and finds out you don't? Even good women, when they reform and become good, what do you think they think when they look at you and you don't have it? Base Muslim, gladly. I will gladly supplicate on your behalf. All right. Charles Irby. I would say, Salam alaikum, man. I would say, I would probably say Oman and Kenya. Both. I'd recommend both of them. Work in Oman, have a second home in Kenya, or save for one. The thing is, in Oman, they got black Omanis that speak Swahili, Arabic, and English. You'll get in good. You will. The funny thing is, when I spoke, a lot of them knew, like right off the bat, I'm just speaking English. That was back in 2014. I went speaking in English. They realized, oh, okay, yeah. What's up, man? How you doing? You came all the way from the States. So there was recognition when I spoke, similar to what happens here in Riyadh. Now, when I'm in these villages, it's not quite the same. But when I'm in Riyadh or a big city in this country, a lot of times I speak and they get it. When I say something in English, they get it. So you'll be getting good. And if you want to learn Swahili, they'll teach you. And then when you retire to Kenya, you'll already know English and Swahili. So I'd recommend that combination if it were up to me. So let's move on to what's up with men like Kerry Pope. Guys like him, if they're already older and they're single, be it through a divorce or just never married, they know what the deal is. Why can't guys be nicer when they're in that position? Because men learn that it's not safe to be that way. Women can't be attractive and be nice in the West because they're socialized not to, that makes them too easy, makes them an SLUT. It's okay to be a slut as long as you're doing it the way that men don't want in the long run. That's fine. But to be one just with your husband and treat him well and that sort of thing, well, that's no, you don't do that. No, But for the men, it's different. The men have to grow into the knowledge that good side of you, that nice side of you, is not safe with them. We learn it through experience again and again and again until we realize that no matter how many nice women actually exist, we're not going to meet most of them. They're either not large in number or they're not outside. That's what we have to understand. Wa alaikum salam, Abdul Malik Abu Thalatha. They failed to realize that. Rebecca fails to realize that. She got lucky. And she even said there ain't a bunch of Kerry Popes walking around. That's true, but what's the reason? You have to financially settle and you must still submit. And that's when these good men become available. That's when they become, widely available. But these ladies ain't about to do that. Few men can earn what he does. But also think about that combination. These women, they're hyper experienced to the extent that even Kevin Samuel said that many men will have to accept that these women have higher body counts than themselves in order to marry. Even high value men would have to accept that. Now, Kevin Samuel said high value men don't cheat, they exercise their options. Adultery is adultery. I believe in polygyny, but adultery is adultery. However, I'm starting to think that when men do it, we shouldn't call it cheating. Disobedience to God, sure, but cheating your wife, no. They don't have a right to a man's monogamy and don't know how to deal with it when they find it. Ask me how I know. I'm generally monogynous. It's easier that way. Think that maybe that runs in the family too. I'm not sure, but took me into my 40s to find someone that appreciated it. I was 39. Let me see. How was I when she and I met? Yeah. So in any case, you get the idea. It took me up until that point to meet her and then marry her. And even then, we still have time to see if she can keep up. So the very standard that they have, we're talking about even high caliber women, is warlike. It's impossible, really. And they know this. They despise men who can't amass high body counts than they do as women. But they know most men can't amass high body counts. Even when we're looking at just the women that do like us, they're not willing to be practice dummies because they like us. So they understand that, but they're still looking for you to meet this impossible standard. Even good women tend to want men that have had a lot of practice. Virgin women want men who've had a lot of practice. Some of my lady students who aren't married message me out of the blue. Now they know I'm married. They got male classmates sitting next to them that are inexperienced like them, virgins like them. What's up with that? Why they ignoring them dudes? Now these ladies aren't disrespectful to me or my wife. They say things to me like I got a message yesterday while I was doing my live stream from a former student. She left the program because she got a job. She said, "I miss you so much." Now, in Arabic, she might have said, "I miss y'all," but since y'all isn't a formal word in English, it's not going to go through Google Translate. So I don't teach them y'all. And so therefore, she probably couldn't write y'all in English. That's just you, plural you, singular you. Maybe in Arabic, she said, "Ashtaq ilaykum," which means you all, meaning me and the other students, which would be more polite. Maybe that's what she wrote into and wrote in Arabic. Maybe so. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. But to hit me up out the blue like this, that's something else. I mean, this is still Saudi after all. And she's not from the capital city. She's from some place not too far away, but it's not quite the capital city. So, but keep in mind, my students don't know that I can understand basic Arabic. I pretend to be a non-Arabic speaker around them because otherwise I lose my job. But they have sometimes, even in my experience, when I'm teaching, because I'm now teaching male and female students alike. Wa alaikum salam, the features. You were right. You were right, Charles. What you told him, that was right. They'll get the pension. All right. The features, to answer your question about this, what you could look at is one lady named Bossy Empress TV. She's on YouTube. Now, she has an OnlyFans, but I'm not telling you to look at that. I can't access that here anyway, even if I wanted to. But somebody in the States did when I went on a panel. I went on his panel and he did it with a screen share. Just the main page with some of the advertisements. It was still bad enough. But she's on it. That's the point. She's talked about spirits telling her things about people she meets, but she's a dog. Another one is Shira 7. She dash RA dash, you can spell 7 out. I forgot her name, but her husband's name is James. All she talks about is get that money, girl, sprinkle, sprinkle. We don't bring nothing to the table, sprinkle, sprinkle. That's all she talks about, really, from what I've been hearing. And also in here, in this chat right now features, the Geek Underground knows something about both her and Bossy Empress TV. Those two are a start. El Guapo, his channel's name is Beautiful Lies. El Guapo said that, well, actually, he put up a video clip of a woman confessing that she's in a coven with other women, and they're routinely putting spells and hexes on men. So she was telling men to be careful who you mess with, because we put these spells and these hexes, they work on you, and you sitting up thinking it's the will of God. That's so these are the names you could find in their videos. I will. So in any case, here I am as a teacher, one of the first few to teach male and female students at the same time. And they're starting at 19. The male and the females alike, starting at 19. I got a few that are married. They're more respectful. generally speaking. But most of them are respectful. I'm not disrespected outright, but there have been times they do some things that dropping hints. And this is in a conservative country. Mind you, the whole time I lived in the West, grew up, and then as an adult, I was supposed to think that I was unattractive. And when that became unrealistic for me to think that to think about myself that I'm unattractive, then they just settled for convincing me that they thought I was. Then when that didn't work, they settled for convincing me that there was just something so inherently wrong. Then I moved here, and once I came to a larger city, something changed. A lot of times I sit because of my back. So I'll teach and I'll sit. I don't just stand up when I don't need to. I'll stand up again and write on the board. But there are times when, especially when I wear the pants that you can buy here, which are smaller in size, they fit tighter. I don't like it, but that's what's here. When I stand up, about 3 of my students will continue looking straight across. They're sitting, I'm sitting. We're eye level. I stand up. What is now with the eye level of somebody sitting? And they keep looking across directly for a little bit longer. And mind you, the pants aren't even tight enough to where my jump print shows that easily. It's like they're looking to see if it will. And fortunately, the air conditioning is pretty strong in there. I don't like it cold like that. But in this case, when it happens, when it's like that, it works out. This is in a conservative country. Stateside, they don't look at you like that, and it's not because of their chastity. It is because they just want you to be undervalued, and that's what you're facing. And Rebecca Lynn Pope is falling for this. No, there are plenty of guys out there. Plenty. But what's happening is these women are showing the men that we're not valuable to them. They're seeing that. You and I are seeing that. Then I come here to a conservative country, and ladies, not being disrespectful in many cases, but they're still showing some of what you call choosing signals. I learned to recognize them here. This is where I learned to recognize them. Happens when I'm out and about as well. I thought I could be invisible, blending with the background amongst other guys. That's what the West teaches you. So in any case, you understand what the difference is in what you're being told. You're already being told by a bunch of them. And when you're in relationships with them, and I'm only going to advocate marriage, but a lot of times even then, you're led to believe that, you're a good husband, but sometimes you're her type and she wants you to think that you're not really that much her type. That's what they want you to think. And then they want to tell you that when you go to conservative places, that the women are even more difficult than them. So this is going on here. I'm seeing this from the most conservative women in the world, but the most liberal and liberated women in the world with high body counts are acting like you and I are so underwhelming to them, with the exception of finding out that either we're violent or we're from out of town, or just we're taken. Y'all know how that goes there. Oh yeah, you're appreciated when you're taken, or you're violent, or maybe if you're from out of town, maybe. Now, they're supposed to be the most liberated. You think that if they find you interesting, they'd be okay with showing it. Oh, no. It's not the case. They want to tell you the women are the same everywhere you go. You're seeing that they're not. I'm seeing it. But if that's the case, how come you're not as interesting to them over there where you live? Somebody's lying. Now here, there's a bit of a Nick culture. I admit that, a little bit of it. Some of the women here want their men to be the N19 model stereotype. Those are usually the Bedouin women. They might be in the car. You don't hear it, but they're in the car and people here drive aggressively. And she might be telling her husband, why did you let them go ahead of you? Stuff, dumb stuff like that. But men, generally speaking, you can talk your way out of a fight here if it really comes to that. And if you do, these women ain't sitting up here looking at you like, oh, you a punk. I'd have swung on. Now, you already know in the West what it is. Here, they're not hybristophilic once you're at a level where you'll defend them if need be. If you're to that point, you're not a coward, then you're generally good. And sometimes defense is simply not starting anything. You might talk your way out of a fight, and she still respects you, unless she's one of those not only Bedouins, but messy Bedouins with like no education at all. Now, that does exist. Chances are you're not going to wind up with any of them anyway. But I don't have to tell you what happens. If you were a Westernisha and a dude tries to start a fight and he thinks you're somebody else, you realize it and you just say, wait, I'm not him. This is my name. I'm not that dude. Just because you explained to him you're not that dude and you showed him and he says, oh man, I'm so sorry. My bad, bro. My bad. Just from that, you go and stand next to your wife or girlfriend after that. She's a Westernisha. You already know you don't get no respect. I don't have to tell y'all about that. You already know what that is. I got to tell you about what it is here. And you know it better than I do because things have probably changed since I left. And Rebecca Lynn Pope is sitting here trying to act like we got entire movements that are like swearing off black women. And we don't even have that yet. We have movements that are swearing off black Western women, black Western women. That does exist. A lot of brothers that don't want a Western sisters don't want a Western white woman either. Me included. I don't want none to do with them. They're nicer in the beginning. I know if you're black, they're nicer to you in the beginning. They're hell on wheels to their own men, just like sisters are to brothers. The sister gets her a Wyatt. If she can get one, she's all nice to him. They'll tell you I acted differently with him. Some of them say this. Marriages still don't work out. The difference is that white women don't sit up and say, when I got with a black man, I acted better with him than I did with a white. That's the only, really the major difference. At some point, it still comes out. There was a study done in 2014, I think it was, or 2015. Maybe it was even before then. A study still showed that white women still demanded that non-white men make more money than white men to be with the same white woman. So the same white woman that has a medium income floor for a white guy to meet has a raised one for a Latino man and 8 times that floor for a black man. Not so much to date, but to marry. Or to be seen out in public with. Do you see where this is going now? This, you understand this at this point. They still have that. So I don't want either of them. That's not an option. It's not an option for my son. Not allowed for his own benefit. Nope. Rebecca Lynn Pope is intentionally ignoring certain things. She's not doing the research. And then she's going on camera, recording herself, and then uploading it later on like she's smart. No. Rebecca Lynn Pope is flip-flopping. Now, I didn't know she was going to do this years ago. I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt, but I listened, see what she was going to do years ago. And I realized to a certain extent, she's not going to get it. Shahrazad Ali is not going to get it to a certain extent. People hear about any sort of red pill awareness, and they think it's a bunch of loser incels and maybe even some 9AY guys. A lot of times they think this. Shahrazad Ali had that idea at first. And granted, she was talking about Kevin Samuels, and he had those mannerisms, but Kevin Samuels stated he was raised by a single mother. He was aware of the mannerisms. He stated this. And one thing I did notice, though, because I went to college in Atlanta, as y'all know, in Atlanta, I found that there were guys that had a few of those mannerisms because they were common, but they actually weren't into other dudes. I had to learn the difference between those two in Atlanta. It's not common everywhere else, but I had to learn the difference in Atlanta. It does exist. I had to learn that. I had to learn other ways to tell if somebody was into dudes after a while of living in Atlanta. But Shahrazad Ali even said that. Now, mind you, she was talking about stuff before the manosphere was. She was saying certain points, beating the manosphere to it by 3 decades. But she didn't fully get it. So we got to understand, there are going to be a lot of ladies that don't get it. Many of them won't. We're not going to sit up and go anywhere if we're going to debate with each other about the ladies and their understanding. It's good for us to be aware when they flip-flop. But what we have to really be aware of, gentlemen, is what we got to tell these young brothers. We got to tell these young brothers, and I'm talking elementary at this point, about to go into middle school, the end of elementary. We need to start telling these young brothers, listen, these ladies are lying about what they want, and the little girls are going to follow them. And your age group of little girls is not going to outgrow the phase. They're going to go through a hybristomaniac, hybristophilic phase, and they're going to stay going through it. When they get in their 30s and 40s, it's still going to be the same thing. They're not going to mature and grow up. I'm letting you know that. If you want to be with someone, get out the West. And if she's from the West, then what she needs to do to qualify is to not only leave the West for a third world nation, a real third world nation, she needs to go and live in one of the villages and learn how to de-Westernize. A Western-born, Western-raised woman that cannot do that does not make the cut. That's what needs to be understood. And that's what we got to tell these young brothers. We can use Rebecca Lynn Pope as an example of a woman that got it one day, and a few years later, she doesn't get it. She wants to use this whole both sides argument. Ain't no both sides. If women are going to sit up and brag about being the gatekeepers to sex, although men and women should be, but if women brag about being the gatekeepers to sex, well, sex happens in our terms. They got to take the responsibility. Fair is fair. Should we be easy? Should we be unchaste? No. Do they brag about being the more chaste gender, even though they got the high body counts? Yes, that comes with a price. That's what it comes with. If they can't treat sex like a need of theirs and of the men's, then they're going to have to admit that alone right there, forget the financial qualifications. And I'm saying this as a father of daughters. That alone right there means that polygyny should be the norm. You can't keep up with a husband by yourself. You need help. Polygyny should be the norm. And don't go looking for an ugly co-wife either. Are they ready for this? Probably not. So anyway, let's see here. All right. One Cash App. And that's it. So let me check the comments before I go. Charles Irby, that's right. We should refuse. Now, as Muslims, you and I know that we're not supposed to rack up high body counts ourselves unless it's just a bunch of marriages. But we should refuse to be with the ones with high body counts. What the F? It's foolish. When they get that, it's true they can't pair bond. Rick Scorpio, the sprinkle broad, Shira 7, is a definition of arrogance. She is, it's true. But I don't want us to underestimate the hatred that she has. There's some misandry there. She's not stupid, per se. She knows that money is money. I mean, hell, her husband doesn't make 6 figures, and that's not his fault. She knows that money is money. It gets up and it runs from you. If it didn't, it wouldn't be money anymore. She knows this. She understands this. This chick is telling women to demand of men. She's pretty much just telling, what she's preaching is dangerous to men, actually. And there's a hatred behind that. Detroit 313, bingo. That. That right there. And she talks about the mystic spirits. She's telling you she's into that stuff. She's into witchcraft. Can we afford that? If she's into witchcraft, that's a bad that's bad for anybody at whom she directs it if they don't know what it is. See, witchcraft's more likely to work on you when you don't believe in it. That's what people don't realize. You just may not know what's going on, but it's more likely to have an effect because you don't even ask your maker for any protection. This too, Charles Irving. We need to talk about Omar Johnson. Thank you, Charles Irving. Now, I haven't been paid enough to do it, but I think I'll go ahead and mention something about Omar. Omar understands how we should act when it comes to other groups of people to a certain extent. But Omar doesn't fully understand white supremacy himself. He understands that it is far reaching. He does the right job of not underestimating it, but he doesn't understand what caused it. In the religion that he actually does not take seriously and that he even leaves in and out of, there is a solution and an answer to it. He doesn't want to think that there is an enemy that we can't see. The other thing is this: Omar says, no, not just white women, all races. No, every woman out there is not against black men. He wants to say that about the Western white, the Indian woman, fine, because the people have shown their anti-blackness. The Features has done shows on this. The Iranian, the Afghan, the Pakistani woman, some of the Arab women, yeah, okay, sure, fine, because of what their people have shown. But Omar Johnson is a damn fool if he thinks that black men are in danger when we marry women from Southeast Asia who don't have anything against us, and their people don't either. If you're Christian and you marry that Catholic Filipina, she's not your enemy. If you're Muslim and you marry the Muslim Filipina from the South, or the Malaysian or the Indonesian or the Singaporean woman, or even the Thai Muslim, they live in the South near the border with Malaysia. Even them, they're not your enemies. Not at all. If I hadn't met my current wife, I would have been looking there later. Not just for me, but for my son. I got lucky. I mean, I knew my wife before that, but I thought she was engaged or married. I knew her as a neighbor, another teacher. That was what I knew. I didn't know much else. So, but upon finding out that she was available and willing to discuss marriage, or that she had noticed me, I should say, then that changed the course. But I already knew at this point because I was busy researching it. Because I knew in 2017, I told you all about this. 2017, I began to realize I wasn't going to be able to marry a sister no more, not a Western sister. I didn't know about the continent. I wasn't really sure. I pretty much thought, yeah, it's pretty much over with me, pretty much over for sisters with me. Why should an unmixed sister trust me? And my ex, well, she had an inferiority complex, and that's not compatible with me. So it looks like it's over. So what's next? If Dr. Omar is going to sit up and tell you that, that's foolish. Because see, what he's talking about you're going to face when you start dealing with these non-black women are the things you're going to face when you deal with the sisters that they come from the West. And she's not a tradition I believe that the call messed up the. I think that's what messed everything up. So, all right, the features, you said somebody close to you was married to one of those and she was Muslim. I'm not sure if you mean married to a witchcraft practitioner. But if so, we're going to have to talk about that too, because I think it's going to wind up being a fad amongst the Western Muslims. I'm afraid that it will be. This is true right here. ID forever. They don't want men exchanging notes. They absolutely did. I'm sure these in social media. They don't want us to do that, and they've never wanted that. They've been talking with each other, trading things about. That's what girl talk is now. From now on, when they say no, you better do it in another language. No, because what the hell you think girl talk is? Trading notes so that they can learn certain things and do certain things and get away with certain things, all be on one accord. That's what that is. That's all. That's all girl talk is. Manipulation, deception, or exploitation of men. Honestly, that's it. Okay, Charles Urban. Boom. 2 black women tell you yesterday, but can't these passport bros go quietly? The point, I thought the passport brothers should have gone quietly at first. I thought so too. But if it's influencing more brothers to travel, absolutely we should not. That's why I'm doing this now. No, we're not going to go quietly. We're going to talk about this. We're going to say something about this. Nope, you're going to deal with this. You're going to see us bouncing. Just like those 2 sisters that were at the airport, and one, I think one was at the airport in Colombia, and the other at I forgot which airport she was in, but both of them were talking. One was talking about the plane, and they were being picked up in them by them ladies in them freakum outfits, and the other one, I forgot what she was saying. But the point is, both of them knew what the deal was, and that's important. That's funny. Call him Fubar Johnson, huh, bro? Man. This is the case here. We can't have this simping anymore. After what they've done to him, and he can't marry. He's trying to stay with black women, got 2 kids out of wedlock. He can't marry no sisters. Can't do it. By sister's own definition, 2 of them should be lining up to marry him and share. You actually said that. Didn't he say that he isn't married because he can't exactly trust the woman? He cannot. He did say something about that. He absolutely did say he should be married now, but he's not. Ain't nobody, he can't. Walaikum salam, Brother Campbell. All right, Abdul Malik, here's the thing. I'll tell you why they kind of both suck. The better one and the Western educated one. The one that's in between is probably the better one, but the better one, but the Bedouin one, they're not educated, they're ignorant. And they'll sit up there, they're not feminists per se, but they'll sit up there and just have all kinds of attitude. They still got mouth, if that's their personality. And all of the ignorance of the Bedouin will hold back anybody. I mean, the Bedou that live here only advance when they leave Bedouiyah behind. They can't stick with Bedouiyah and then advance. The two they just don't go hand in hand. It's not possible. Hospitality is fine. You start taking the attitude that the Bedouins have towards education and their work ethic. Nope, can't do it. Sorry. You cannot advance like that. You just can't. They're slick. They're left and right. They lie. You can't advance with them. And your life, if you marry a woman that's like that, you can't advance with them. Some of the mothers would hit their sons if they found out that their sons didn't cheat on tests. You were supposed to help your friend and they slapped their son. Look, what, he's cheating on a test. You supporting that? See, some of the Bedouin values are not just passed down from father to son, they're passed down from mother to son. And I'll tell you another thing I don't forgive with these Bedouin. The Bedouin are the main ones that call us top of the morning, gifted hands, what's going on? The Bedouin are the main ones that sit up and say to us, they'll call us slaves. Not even out of hatred, but they're the main ones that do it. They don't just learn that from dad. Their mothers will do it. Now, the Western educated ones, they'll throw certain things over their shoulder, but then they replace them with masses values. And so they become that kind of problem. The Western educated ones are the ones that are bringing feminism in. And it's a problem in Riyadh. They've talked about this. It's a big deal. It's changing things in Riyadh. And it's going to change things in other cities soon. The better ones actually wind up being the most impressed. They can be stubborn, but they can wind up being some of the most impressed easily as long as it comes from the West. So I wouldn't, if I had to choose, I'd pick someone in the middle between them. I wouldn't pick either one of them, but I wouldn't marry a Saudi woman anyway. Speaking of which, that reminds me, you do have, well, somebody asked me about this yesterday. And then after this, I got to go because it's almost an hour and a half. And this has not been that lucrative, so I have to go after this. But someone did ask yesterday about older women in Saudi being unmarried. Someone told me that these dudes stopped marrying women at age 25. 25. We would look at someone 27, 28 and say, yeah, there's still time. For these cats are like, no, 25, done. You missed it. And I think that's a good thing. But because, and it's not the women that are really chasing them in a way yet. They're about to with the feminism, but they haven't been chasing them in a way as long as the feminism has been around. It's dads that do it. These stubborn Arab culture following ass dads. Family honor. You have to pay a high dowry to marry my daughter. Man, screw you. You want everybody to say that to your son too? Now, they don't want anybody to say that to the son, but they'd rather the sons never be able to afford to marry than for their daughters to actually get married affordably. Family honor, you know, it's like that. So, yeah, there are plenty of women here growing old and they ain't getting married and they got to work. Oh, well. All right, so let's see here. Yep, Indigo Flow, I think that's true. How they going to be so loud and tell us to go quietly? They've been talking crap for 50 years. Oh, Charles Irving. This must be Philadelphia. This must be. Because when I was at the courthouse in Casablanca, they pulled out a file of the international marriages so that I could see the paperwork that was needed. Bruh, so many African-American brothers from Philly that married locals over there. Bruh. Maybe it's not Philly, but sounds like it. I heard about this actually happening a few years ago, and now it's happening again. Yep. Yep. They mad at the Moroccan women because Moroccan women, if they're practicing their religion and they're good husbands, they win. Because Moroccan women, I mean, they could be SLUTZ in certain other countries, but the ones that are practicing and serious about it, they win. Their husbands don't lead them. They know what they're doing. So here's another one, Charles. Yeah. If they're saying that the men are lame and corny, then the men need to go ahead and just go ahead and say, no, we're out. Yep, we're out. You said we're lame and corny. That means that something's wrong with you. And I stated this. Do you all remember when I had my Patreon? You know the message for which I lost my Patreon account? They shut it down. And maybe I need to start it again because only a few were coming through on the Cash App. I just don't know. I don't want to use this. I want to use the same email address. Maybe their bans expire. I'm not sure. But let me tell you all this. Here's what happened with the Patreon account. I put out a message on YouTube and on Patreon. If she likes you, something's wrong with you. I was talking about the Westernisha. If you're one of them dudes that select and Westernishas are coming after you, then there's something wrong with you. Now, there could be things that are right with you genetically, but there's got to be something psychologically wrong if they keep on rocking with you. It's got to be. I stated that before, and I meant that. If they like looking at you, that's one thing, but they keep coming back to you and coming back to you and coming back to you. They're not coming back to you because of something that's super manly about you. They're coming back to you because of something wrong with you. What's going on, Jay Sean Randoms? What's happening? That's true, Charles, about Morocco in that regard. They'll be generally reasonable about the dowry. They don't try to gouge all the money out of the men. And I tend to agree that you should try to make marriages easy. But the problem, the issue with Morocco is that you still have to watch out for the Salafis, because they can have, I'm not going to say they're just outright racist, but yeah, they have some anti-black assumptions that they make. Like, in other words, they still see white as normal and black as something abnormal, even if they don't hate us. And so they can have some of these assumptions. The only time I ever had to argue with my ex was about that. She told me, stop telling these cab drivers you're from Africa. No, I'm not going to stop telling them that. We're on African soil. Yeah, but people don't, they think you mean like black African. People don't have much respect for them. I told her, I don't care what black Africans are doing here, good or bad. I'm not going to sit up and deny it. And the thing is, I learned how deep that rabbit hole went. Now, she actually took my correction, but she requested a divorce for another reason. I found out later. When I got back here to Saudi, some people were saying, so good visit with your wife. And I was like, she'll be free to remarry in, when the 90 days are up. I tell them that. And I'm talking about teachers here included. A lot of them Salafi. They were like, oh man, brother, we got to get y'all together. I said, hey, look, at the time I thought that she was asking for a divorce because of her racial views, which I found out about at this point. I said, no. I don't tolerate racism. Absolutely not. Well, you can fix that. See, there you go. Imagine I was just anti-Arab. Would Arabs be trying to fix this? No, it would be a divorce. We need to be the same way. I would tell them that. Some Arabs, even after the divorce was finalized, some Arabs would be like, oh, so I was the new professor then. So they were asking questions like, are you married? I was. Oh. Arabs actually thought that I was wrong for granting her the divorce because of her racial attitude. Now, like I said, she lost it after the argument, but she didn't tell me that. She requested a divorce for another reason. So all I knew at the time was she had a racial attitude problem. And she's a black woman. And I don't tolerate that. So the Arabs were like, well, that's not a big deal. I tell them, well, imagine you marry an Arab woman and she has an inferiority complex about being Arab. Is that okay? No, it's not okay. She might teach that to the kids. And I was like, well, see, that's the problem. You all need an inferiority complex because you fucking suck with your culture. But you won't turn around and tell me that I'm supposed to forgive an anti-black inferiority complex from a black woman. Man, screw you. And that's why I became so militant against Bedouins in general. I mean, I've been disappointed in them before, but after this, I was in the second city in which I lived. Word got out. That bald-headed guy, that light-skinned bald-headed dude will tell you off. If you're racist and you don't know it, he'll find out and tell you. Word got out. And people were more careful. Just the assumption that white is normal and black is not was enough for me to go off on it. Later, she told me, look, you were right about the race thing. I had to ask for a divorce because of detectives bothering relatives because of paperwork that wasn't there. So I was dealing with that. And she was a Salafia. Now, if they're supposed to be the most serious Muslims, that means they're supposed to be the most serious against racism. Shouts out to Sir Anthony. Thank you, sir, from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. Man came through today. Appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Just in the last few minutes. So yeah, what you're dealing with, Charles, that's becoming more and more common in Northern Africa. Now, Tunisia was generally not as bad amongst the population. The president tried some of that stuff, and the population actually called them out on it. And I know that because of some Tunisians that they're teaching with my wife. And I met them before, and they were like, no, he's trying to use y'all as a scapegoat, and we're not having that. Now, legal immigration is illegal, even if the French do it, but we're not going to single him out and have him single out other Africans. That's not okay. So his population actually was not with that. Tunisians are quite highly educated, but they don't necessarily take Islam that seriously sometimes. If they do, they don't take polygyny seriously. And I know because my wife's Tunisian friends are unmarried. They're in their 30s, they ain't married. A lot of times it's because they won't be a second wife. I'm like, you wait until you're in your 30s, but you don't want to be a second wife. Man, fit the guck out my face. I'm like, man, miss me with that mess. So in Morocco, that is a thing. They actually call us Izzy in Morocco. They don't call us Abda a lot of times. They call us Izzy. And even though it comes from honor, they don't mean it as a compliment. They mean it as a pejorative. And I don't tolerate that from them either. Now, my Senegalese friend that lived in Morocco, he's the one that introduced me to my ex-wife. He didn't notice about it because that was his wife's aunt. But he told me he started to see some of this going on. And I just started giving people the blues. Like, you ain't near black. I'm giving you crap. He caught trouble in China. He caught trouble in God, where else? Yeah, in Morocco they called him Izzy, and they thought he didn't know what it meant. He told them in French, I know what that word means. Oh, we're so sorry. Man, get out of my face with this. We're on African soil. So some of the Moroccans will make you advocate for a complexion-based expulsion of North Africa. Some of them will do that. Egyptians too. They really get on my last nerve with that. Because they think that they know everything in general. And as to tell the truth, most of the nasty attitude in North Africa is coming out of Egypt. It's not really coming out of Algeria or even Libya to the same extent. Libya's got a problem because they don't have much of a government. The government's been weakened. So that's where a lot of that stems from. I do believe they got a slave trade. I don't think that every Libyan is, I don't even think most of them are okay with it, but it does exist. But man, I ain't gonna front, bruh. Morocco is fast becoming worse. So anyway, I've got to go ahead and head out. Got stuff I got to do. Got an important phone call to make, and it's time to pray as well. So I really appreciate you all coming through this time. Today I had 2 off days in a week, so that's why I was able to do this back to back. To those that came through in the Cash App, I appreciate that. I mean that because you all have been coming through repeatedly, regularly, and many others have not done so regularly. But putting it to good use for the business or something that the business is going to need. And I'm not sure exactly when I'll go live again because the next one devote that time to my wife and to our neighbors' kids. Oh, wow. This is bothersome right here. I mean, they don't have to get out in the sun and get darker to make me happy. It's not something that I demand. But that gets on my last mother cuss word nerve that they're trying to get paler. Ironically, two of my students here got darker. They got tans on a vacation, and they've been keeping the tan since the vacation ended. I mean, I really thought. So in any case, yeah, got to bounce. I really appreciate y'all coming through. Okay, wait, you all right? You got me, Abdul Malik. What's the answer, bro? We'll give him time to type that answer up. I bet I know what it is though. I'm pretty sure you can type. I can't wait to hear this answer, man. Come on, I'm on pins and needles. Is it right if I just go ahead and type in the answer? You can tell me if I'm, or say the answer, and you tell me if I'm right or not. We're in suspense, Abdul Malik. Indigo Flow and I are on pins and needles. I'm sure the base Muslim and Charles Zerby are on pins and needles too. I'm actually sticking around a bit longer to hear this. What reason did they tell you? All right. I'm going to go ahead and take a guess because I'll have to go. My guess is that they simply don't want to get any darker, and they don't want to be mistaken for tropical Africans in North Africa. They know what they say about tropical Africans, and they don't want to be mistaken for them at first glance and have people call them certain names in the street. That's my guess. So they would rather be squished together than to risk tanning for like 2 seconds. Yeah, I can understand why you would feel rage. And maybe the North is due for a complexion-based cleansing, probably Morocco and Egypt. Because I'm going to tell you, in Egypt, they argue about this. They're arguing in very good English against Afrocentrics. And I'm sick of the slow steps and the no steps. But when Afrocentrics are right about something, damn it, they're just right. That's it. And the Egyptians are not arguing with them when they're wrong. They're arguing with them when they're right. And so consequently, I'm just about done with them. I've had one Egyptian ask me why I didn't encourage my son to study at Al-Azhar, and I straight told him, after Kevin Hart was canceled there, after the show was canceled, not for any religious reasons, not for his foul language, nothing like that. No, when he was canceled because he referred to ancient Egyptians as black, that tells me everything I need to know. I'm not sending my son. He's recognizably black. Someone's going to call him a slave. And if my son fights them and he gets in trouble, then we're going to have to grab an Egyptian in my hometown to take vengeance. Or here. I had to tell this man, we do not tolerate even an assumption that white is normal and black is not. Either both suck or both are normal. Or maybe you can assume that black is better because we don't start stuff on the basis of race with other races. You can make that assumption too, and we'll accept it. But this notion that the world has whites up here and black is down there, no, we don't accept that. That's blasphemy. We will call you a kafir to your face for something like that. I certainly will. I've told Muslims, or they call themselves Muslims, I told some of them here, you say something racist and you try to defend it, I'll never pray behind you again. You are a disbeliever to me. You're not entitled to any of the zakah. You cannot lead me in prayer. You are not eligible to marry any of my kids. We are two different religions. If you have a racist belief and you don't think it's even worse if you don't think it's racist. I have the right to discriminate against you because you're racist. That's what I've had to tell a lot of them, quite a few of them at times. So yeah, it's time for me to go. And thank you all for listening. I appreciate that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you again for flying with me on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with me till the wings and the wheels fall off. And if you can't hit the Cash App button for me, do so for Brother Hayes, Dwight Hayes, and his co-writer. Gender, justice, forever. Until next time.